Nicholas, can you hear me? There we go.
All right, can you hear me now? Oh, yes, we can. Great, my apologies for the delay. We had some computer concerns, but we fixed that. I am going to turn the computer around. You'll still hear my voice, but you'll be able to see the actual Yamhill Water Advisory Committee. Can you tell me if you can see the three on the far side?
Yep.
Can they see you? Can you? Excellent. Here, so I'm gonna see if I can fix that.
There's don't know who to send it to for them.
Yeah. Click on IT.
Here we go. Again, can we see?
Yeah, who do you give it to?
Excellent. Wonderful.
All of the ones, you can only see about half of them.
Here's all the stuff for IT.
So if I moved it this way, would that help?
I wouldn't know who to send it. Yeah, it's your daughter, go get her.
Kyle's probably okay with that. All right, everybody, let's go ahead and get started. It is 4:21. Again, my apologies. This is the very first meeting and agenda for the City of Yamhill City Water Advisory Committee. This is Thursday, November 18, 2021 at again 4:21 p.m. And I would like to call this meeting to order with a roll call. Can we start over here, please? Tiffany here, Potter here,
Adams here, Walker here. Ulrich here. Justin.
and then go ahead and identify yourself.
John Christensen.
And can we get those that are online, please, to announce who they are and what their role is?
Sharon Briganti Kendo, Administrative Clerk. Nicholas, you're next.
Yeah, Nicholas Peasley, the city attorney, although I don't think I'm a member of the board officially, or the committee, so.
Oh, are we just
No,
doing?
this is not roll call. We're just getting an introduction here.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay, in that case, Nicholas Peasley, city attorney.
Thank you. And Jody, if you're available.
Yes, of course. Jody Christensen. I'm a Regional Solutions Coordinator and I serve Marion Polk in Yamhill County, and I've had the pleasure of attending a few of your exploratory meetings around water solutions.
And is there anybody else on the panel that would like to respond? Okay, with that, I think we can move forward. Because this is a formal meeting, we have to provide opportunity for public comment. We don't have any public in the room today, but there may be public available if online. If they are, please raise your hand if you would like to make a comment to the Water Advisory Committee. Sharon, are you seeing any identifying public comment?
No, but I do need to, for the record, I do need to get all the names of the people that are on the committee in attendance so that I can put that in the public record.
Okay, it was part of the roll call and it is being recorded, correct?
Yeah, but I can barely hear the people in the background.
Okay,
So if you want to just state who on the committee, the Water Advisory Committee is here, so I can write that for the record.
well, all persons are present and accounted for the Water Advisory Committee, but we will go through the names again.
That's okay then. Then I'm good.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much.
Uh-huh.
So at this time, we have no public comment. We'll move forward with new business, which is introductions. We heard who was online, and go ahead and introduce yourself here in the room as and your name preferably loudly so that they can hear online, and then what your role will be here in the committee. And we'll start with Kathy.
Kathy Phillips. Advisory board person.
And you are a resident of the water districts, correct?
I'm representing the outside water district.
Excellent. Thank you.
Richard Ulrich, Advisory Council Committee, citizen.
You're welcome.
Paul Smolin, and I'm citizen.
John Christensen, city engineer.
Jason Walker, Public Works Lead.
Kyle Adams, plant operator.
Yvette Potter, city mayor.
Marcy Hadeen, city council member, part of the water advisory committee.
Brian Jensen, EOC director.
All right, introductions are complete. We now have a swearing in of our Water Advisory Committee member, Kathy, who wasn't able to attend the last one. So we will go ahead and do that. Kathy, let's meet up here at front, and I've got your oath here. So for the camera, if you would read your oath,
Can I take this off?
raise your right hand, please. Yes, you are welcome to do that.
I, Kathy Phillips, swear that I will faithfully support the Constitution and laws of the United States of America and the state of Oregon and the charter and ordinance of the city of Yam Hill. And I will perform the duties of a water advisory committee member for the city of Yam Hill to the best of my ability, as long as I may continue in that capacity.
And this is subscribed to me and sworn to me before this day, 18 November 2021. Thank you and welcome. And I have these available for each of you to sign for the record. All right. So there's a lot to accomplish with the Water Advisory Committee. Now that we have an official committee, we need to identify first the voting members. Obviously, the 3 citizen representatives will be voting members. The 2 staff members, Jason Wofford, Public Works Manager, and Plant Operator Kyle Adams will be representative for the city as voting members. The EOC operator will be a voting member, and Council Member Hadeen will be a voting member.
I don't believe that's what's stated in the resolution that was approved.
What do you have stated in the resolution, Sharon?
Let me pull that up.
You may not be on it. And yeah. Sharon, is this something that can be changed?
I would ask Nicholas that question.
So I believe the resolution as it stands, all members except the city engineer are voting members.
We've got Brian Jensen, Jason Wofford, city staff member, sorry. Marcy Hadeen, 2 residents and 1 outside water district.
Okay, we would like to add the plant operator,
Okay,
the city plant operator to that.
okay. And then in the meeting, you
I
stated
did
that
mention the city administration, and I don't know that that's going to be appropriate.
okay,
Okay, thank you, Sharon. I appreciate that.
uh-huh,
All right, so we've identified the committee. We need to identify what the committee will be doing, but first, we should probably take nominations for a chairperson, and that can be any voting member. It doesn't necessarily have to be a city or council representative. It can be any member. So at this time, is there anybody with a nomination for Water Committee Chair?
I would nominate Brian Jensen.
Is there a second for that nomination?
I second it. Barbara.
Is there any other nominations for the position of Chair for the Water Advisory Committee?
I couldn't hear who nominated, and I believe Kathy seconded.
Kathy did second, and it's Rick, right?
Yeah.
And Rick nominated.
Ulrich? Okay.
Yes. All right, with that, we'll take a vote of those voting members on Brian Jensen, the EOC Director, as the Chair for the Water Advisory Committee. All in favor, raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
If you want to nominate somebody, you can have that opportunity.
Brian Jensen, EOC Director, abstained from voting. But are you willing to accept the nomination? Thank you, sir. So Brian Jensen, EOC Director, is the Chair for the Yamhill Water Advisory Committee. And with that, as representative for the council, I will identify some of the things that are assigned tasks from the council for the Water Advisory Committee to accomplish during their time together. And when I say time together, that can be anywhere from a year to 5 years, whatever it's going to take to resolve the water issues and concerns, that we're in it for the long haul. And so I encourage each of you to stick with us if you can. So the assigned tasks, and I'll put this in writing and make sure that you receive it directly, is first to review the 2017 Water Master Plan and all provided report information as a committee. So you will receive this individually as a packet, but as a committee, I'll need you to go through and review these things also, so that everybody's on the same page and kind of has a clear understanding of where the city's been, where the city's at, and where the city intends to go. Prioritize necessary water projects and create a plan to implement. That's where our city engineer comes into play. He's a great resource for that information, and he'll be providing reports regularly to the committee to support that goal.
Excuse me, so is he an AKS person?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Identify available funding sources, and that's a committee effort, and we've got definite resources available to us through Jody Christensen, Business Oregon, AKS Engineering, our city administration person, Sharon. All kinds of resources are available. We just need to be able to narrow down what resources can do what for us. Next is recommend usage guidelines and policies for restrictions and enforcement for all water users, not just districts, not just residents. All water users need to have some sort of guideline and policies for when there's a drought, when there's a restriction, when we need to pull back on some of our resources, and have that a clear defined line, so that we know how to respond in an event. And then lastly, provide a monthly progress report to the city council as part of the council agenda. And so monthly, this committee will report back to the council and kind of give an update on what has been accomplished and what the direction is going, so the council can support you in your efforts that you're doing. The committee is not able to make any final decisions. They do have to be approved by council. So you will be submitting things to the agenda for approval. Okay. With that, I'm going to turn it over to the committee chair, who will then help you to define what days you prefer to meet on, what times you prefer to meet, and how you prefer to meet, whether in person, online, to define the structure of your meetings. And that's all you, Brian.
I might ask one thing in the committee,
Yes.
give input. I think on the task, one of the things that might be helpful with the educational piece, how we educate the community and stuff. I don't know if that,
Yeah.
Community education, I like it. That's great.
if that's a key.
That's the whole point, yeah. I agree.
Well, I think it's probably one of the things that's lacking,
Did it go away?
because without the communication, there is no.
Make your computer easier to use.
You did. Sharon, can you still hear us?
Somebody give me a thumbs up. Oh, Jody.
Yes, I can still hear you.
Okay, thank you. We
Uh-huh.
cannot see anything on the computer, but we don't necessarily need to see you.
Okay. I can't barely hear Brian Jensen, though.
Okay. Brian, will you move to the table or near it if you would, please?
Is there anything else besides education that anybody sees as far as tasks at the moment?
That would be- Actually, communication is probably the biggest one to start with. There'll be others that come up. Possibly tapping into other sources to help write grants to support the funding, because we do have a number of people in the community that are experienced at that. Brian being one of them. You get more money for the fire department than anybody I've ever seen, so.
Any other tasks? Jason, Kyle? I'm sure there'll probably be more that'll come up as we dive into this, but
I'll give you going. I got a list of things here, but they aren't going to where you start.
So with that, I guess we need to figure out when we want to hold this meeting. And I don't know what works best for,
At this point in time, my schedule is wide open anytime, any day.
Thursdays works really good. I mean, I'll have.
As long as it's early or in the day on Thursdays, because we have fire drill Thursday night.
Yeah, I mean, we could move it up unless to 3 o'clock or something. I mean, 4 o'clock is kind of harder time of day. I mean,
what works for Paul.
3 o'clock is too early, so.
Is it better later or?
Any day. Later.
no Friday.
No Friday.
I wouldn't. Everybody's want to go home on Friday.
I'm open to whatever, so.
Yeah, I'm available as well, whatever works for the rest of the group.
So you can't do early any day. Or,
Like, yeah, I mean, I may be able to, but it depends on what day.
yeah. Because 4 o'clock, if we spend a couple hours, right, that's gonna cut you off on
Yeah.
Thursdays. So Mondays are not good for me. Or Wednesdays.
We can go at 3. 3 o'clock on Thursday. 3 o'clock any day.
3 o'clock any day besides Thursday. All right. Yeah, Wednesdays are not for me. That's my granddaughter day.
We got Monday, Tuesday, Friday.
Yeah.
What days are planning commission and council?
Wednesdays.
You should probably not do it on that day, right?
We're down to Tuesday, Monday.
Monday, as long as it's early in the day, not late.
That sounds well.
That's
How
fine.
about Tuesday?
Tuesday would be
Tuesday would be
probably,
fine. What fire board meeting, what night is that?
Monday night.
Okay. Yeah, Tuesday. would-
Tuesday, you want evenings or you want earlier days or?
Tuesday.
I'm open to whatever, so.
You guys are on the clock, right?
Monday or Tuesday, my day off, but I'm fine coming in to do this, so.
But if we do it earlier, then you guys aren't drawing overtime on it, right? Or unless you want to do overtime.
Oh, we're thinking about time. How about 3 o'clock Tuesday?
3 o'clock Tuesday, that work for everybody?
And how many times a month are we meeting?
That was the next question.
Okay,
How often do you think we need to? There's a lot to do.
I would think maybe every other week.
Every other week for a while, I would say.
Well,
It can be changed at any time. Yeah.
Because if you do it just once a month, then we're not getting anything done.
Yeah, there's. December 2nd will not be a good day. Well, we're on Tuesday, so that would
Be the 30th. would be-
should be the 30th of November, would be the next meeting.
Okay.
We'll do the same thing in person and Zoom for everybody.
Yep.
I think we need to, there's so much to discuss and you.
It is a public meeting, so you do have to provide opportunity for public to be
And so
available.
we'll do Zoom. We'll have the Zoom link.
So that November 3rd and 12/14 will be the next one.
Yeah, so we do the 30th and then the 14th of December.
And then there would be the 28th in between Christmas and New Year's, I guess.
Yeah, if everybody's gonna be around on the 28th.
Am I going to-
We'll tentatively set for the 28th.
Okay.
If we need to rearrange.
Okay.
We'll just kind of go every other week, and see how we go. We'll get, I don't know when you'll have the packets out. I know that the water master plan's a lot to read through.
Are you gonna print one of those out for every member?
We prefer to do it electronically to save on paper. If you need it in paper, we will do that for you, absolutely. But if you are okay with electronically, we'll send it out to everybody that way too.
I have one.
Okay.
I'm good. I'm reading it today.
It's a 2-inch binder.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It's-
396 pages, I believe. There's a lot of it.
So everybody will receive it electronically.
It's nice that we get the maps and everything to look at and correspond. We probably need to get some updates on. I was just looking at the projects on there, just. You know, if you can provide an update of what's been done off that list and what hasn't. That would help. I know the pipeline has been done and.
That looks like to be the most needed project, the pipes.
Correct, that was number one priority. And could we get updating pricing on what that actually costs? And if that would help, kind of give you an idea of where we're at today and.
A baseline of our actual cost.
Yeah,
Yeah. Because you don't know whether you're improving anything or whether you're pissing a lot of money, you're all for nothing. Definitely be the way to go.
I think the other thing that would be helpful, at least from my standpoint, I don't know about the rest of the committee, if we had a true up-to-date cost of what the city's cost for water to produce and deliver to the meter today. Because I think when we start talking about other buying water from other entities, we don't have a true, are we paying more or a lot more? Or a lot less. I think as a committee, that would be
Something good to know.
something to know,
And are you talking from creek to door?
to be creek to door.
Okay.
Our power, our building, all that. What's our true cost
To make a gallon of water.
to make a gallon of water delivered to a meter?
You're gonna want to compare that to what these options are gonna provide and how much per gallon as well.
And I think that'll help, you know, as we dive into this, the educational piece and communications part of it.
So Brian, there's a few elements to that that seem pretty easy to get our hands wrapped around. You have power costs at the plant, you have whatever product you're buying to support the plant. I suppose you can assign some sort of hours, staff hours to how much time you spend at the plant. That'll probably be an estimate right there and a lot of other things. Then you've got time spent reading meters. And then beyond that, there's, you know,
You get your maintenance, your upkeep, you should have somewhere in there, and I haven't read through the whole water master plan. There should be a point of what your cost is for that plant. I mean, it's a 50-year plan or 20-year plan. What's gonna be your replacement or update of that system ought to be figured into your water. I would think that,
Yeah, kind of like a equipment costing, you know, piece of equipment's supposed to last 10 years, so you factor that into your new price or replacement price when you're figuring what you're gonna need, what you need per hour from your piece of equipment, so all those things do the same thing. I'm not sure if you would include the reading the meter, so because you're gonna read that meter regardless if you're buying the water from somebody else or making it. That's
fair.
just to throw it out, Bob,
I
because
would think meter reading would be relevant because it is a labor cost associated with the department.
As well as the billing costs.
except,
billing would be
except for you're
another.
gonna have both those costs, whether you're buying water from the city of Mac or Hillsborough, you're still gonna have to read your meters and you're still gonna have to bill. So whether you're producing it or buying it,
It might be a good idea as you look at upgrading your meters, what
Mhm.
cost benefit, if you go to a new style meter that you don't have to
read.
manually read, or you can reduce your labor cost of reading.
So does the city, do you guys, are they your meters or are they the household meter owners' meters?
There are.
Okay, because our outside water district can't speak for the rest of them. When we replace a meter, the top homeowner pays for it.
Whether we count the meter reading costs or not, I would say we still capture it. We can always break it out later on, but capture all the labor costs, all the facilities costs, treatment costs, maintenance costs. They can always be massaged afterwards, but those big nets first. And
So, I mean, I guess to jump in there, you guys want to get into what it costs to produce a gallon of water, and then go and start breaking it up in details like maintenance, labor. So on, so we want different tiers.
It'd be the other way around. All those other numbers would come into how you develop your cost per gallon of water.
Yeah, so make the list of all your expenses, and then we can decide what is and isn't relevant in the discussion, and then, yeah, divide that by water. Yeah, I can do it ahead of all.
Mhm.
So who holds that data and who has the responsibility of chasing it down in the next month?
Jason and Ken,
Yeah,
and Sharon, probably the three,
and Kyle.
and Kyle.
It'd be in the billing.
And every month it's gonna be different depending what chemicals, how much we use, like whenever we use a lot more. So do you want to average the 12 months altogether?
Yeah, I would average.
Average, Because we need to make sure that our bill that we're paying water for is truly what the overall cost is. And that, I mean, if it comes back that you're paying $52 for baseline water now, but actually it's costing the city $55. Need that information to think back and educate on the council and educate the community that here's our true costs.
And, yeah, and then it gives us something to go on, we can start talking about other resources in the water, to bring in a different from wherever it may come, if that's an option to do it. So, funny Jesus, in that master plan, there was a talk about like after 2022 of bringing a pipe to full works.
Yeah, that's sort of on the table with the alternatives we've looked at. I think where we heard from Hillsborough that we had to go to Cherry Grove, that
Patton Valley, Mount Richmond,
because the Cove Orchard line was undersized and couldn't get the water from that.
Yeah.
So,
I know that line in Cherry Grove, I was just on a fire there yesterday. They're at 150 PSI plus at their hydrants
Oh my God.
in Cherry Grove. So it's a high pressure line, and I, looking at the Mount Richmond route, rough numbers is about 5.5 miles. If you follow Mount Richmond all the way, it came down to almost Packer and tied in with the line coming down from the treatment plant. I don't know, that's, as we get down the road, we can look at those options. So, if you want us to kind of overview what we looked at and talked about in the last.
That's the next item on the agenda, yeah.
So I can give a quick overview, and John can correct me if I get off track here. So the overview of water projects we've looked at, we have met with the city of Hillsborough and talked with them. Their recommendation again was back to tie in Mount Richmond and Patton Valley. They come off their sand filter at Cherry Grove. Was their recommendation. We did get some of their contracts that have with other water districts and their rates they're charging. We also met with the city of McMinnville, talked with them. Their recommendation was more to bring a line from Haskins Creek down. I think that's about an 11-mile jaunt, somewhere in there.
Yeah, it's a pretty tricky route. So you're out there at Meadow Lake Road and Panther Creek Road. So I think about 6 miles at the crow flies, but there's a lot of roadway between points.
Yeah,
But they were supportive. They said they've got plenty of capacity.
Yeah, they were willing to sell water. They kind of gave us a breakdown. I believe their rates are a little higher than Hillsborough.
And that's Mac Water.
Mac Water Light.
But they sent over all the background engineering information so we can evaluate that route. They haven't yet provided the usage of the contract. I haven't seen that yet. Maybe Sharon has.
We got a copy of the contract they had with us. Did we get that?
Lafayette.
We haven't seen that one. Hillsborough's one.
Hillsborough.
Sent theirs.
So do they give you like a price per 1,000 gallons, or how are they pricing it?
Per 100 cubic feet.
Yeah, it's a straight unit cost. No base fee.
So I think Minville was like 240 per 100. And Hillsborough was like 177.
Yeah.
I'd have to go back and look at the notes. You know what, as you mentioned that, Brian, I'm thinking, I did see the Mac Water and Light contract with Lafayette. And one thing that caught my attention there is that you had to have a guaranteed usage out of it. Oh. Yeah, that was something they brought on, not a true supplemental water supply. Hillsborough seems open to take it when you want it.
You know, the only problem just taking it when you want it is you have to flush the line before you use it. You just keep it trickling. Then you don't have to. So I think Lafayette's pulling 500 gallons a day, 500 gallons a minute. They got it open to, you know, kind of blending. So that would be things to decide, you know, is it better just use when you need it or just let it trickle?
So you would probably have to reduce what you're treating that plant or something, you go that route. Maybe.
We just have a blow off and have to blow off how much and do a bacteria sample and make sure we're good before we start feeding them, if we do it like that way. We always inject chlorine as we're flushing it out to kill it quicker.
So we've got the two intertie options that we're gonna move forward with evaluating. I guess that's what that's gonna look like, is looking at the alignment route for each option, and then construction costs, and then programming out, say, 20-year operation costs based off their metered sales rate.
That would be your long-term.
Long-term.
So is there any short-term thought process?
We've talked about a few things and I don't refresh my memory, John, but I know at one time there used to be a dam in up there at the intake up above, but the old intake back in '08, I think that washed out. Taken out, washed out, whatever. And I don't know what the thought is, or if you could put some kind of a dam maybe down at current intake, so that when we do open the impound, we're not losing 80% of that water downstream.
Right, so the strategy there is to put in a log jam to create the dam, and it's just a couple feet of water pulled up behind a log there, that would allow more water to get directed into the intake of the treatment plant.
And it'd take a
So
little
it
while.
doesn't really address the water availability issue, but it should allow for better recovery of the water from the impound.
It's just gonna create more work for Kyle and Jason to monitor that impound and just open the valve a little bit, or so we're not dumping all that water downstream.
And one of the projects in the master plan was doing something with the intake up there as far as better way to get water out of the river.
Correct, and this was the solution.
This was it.
So are we looking at dredging out that pond? I think you said you have no records of it ever being cleaned out.
I'm pretty sure.
And what you call it?
The impound is about 3 miles up from the water treatment plant. And it's how many millions of gallons?
Just short of 11 million gallons.
11 million gallons of water.
If it was cleaned out or today.
Seems like we just need a pipe to.
It's about a 3 mile pipe and it was what, $3.5 million to do that.
Is that a hard cost estimated or just a guess?
That was a hard cost estimate. So what we, I'm sorry,
No, who provided the?
AKS. So that was one of the options that we started looking at in August, really, was, is there a viable way to better capture that water with the pipeline? But our concern was that we would be building 3 miles of pipeline that's still constrained by water availability at Turner Creek. So it's a huge capital expense to put out to still be taking that 3 miles of pipeline and building it towards Hillsborough, where you have a.
If we did a tie in the hills, how long would that take?
To build it? Yeah. You know, so the transmission line from town up to the reservoir is about 3 miles. And that took roughly 6 months to build. So you're probably talking about 8 to 12 months to build a 6-7 mile pipeline.
So once a decision is made, it can move pretty quick.
Well, there's probably permitting and stuff.
Funding is gonna be the big issue.
Yeah, that's gonna be number one.
You're probably $10 million. Yeah, I mean, it depends on how big a pipeline we're building there. I mean, if we just, you know, take, for example, the transmission maybe we built for reservoirs down. You know, it's all in cost, $800 to $1 million a mile.
I think the one advantage coming Mount Richmond, if you stayed all, just follow Mount Richmond, 85% of that's a gravel road, county road. You don't have state highway permits or anyway, and no paving, no asphalt. You know, there's very little, if any, utilities along that Mount Richmond.
Oh, underground stuff.
Yeah, I mean, so that'd be pretty open. There might be some savings there versus coming down a highway where you gotta stop back and pave and.
Well, you know, coming down 47 will be.
Yeah. There's a cost. So it's probably long, I mean, what the advisory committee ought to look at is the short term. You know, for next summer, try and have some recommendations to the council and something that probably the log jam is the most cost effective and most bang for our buck at the moment.
Yep, I think that's the decision to be made. Is the, you know, $100,000 it would take to build that infrastructure, is the city getting enough value out of that long term? And I think probably yes, you are. You know, it's not the final step, it's a step that will give you a little buffer.
Can a lock just get put in there accidentally?
There might be one coming down the road.
Make that happen, probably.
You got beavers in there right now anyway.
Yeah, they'll help you out, but in the right spot. 7 to 3 or something.
Not much water, just a log jam act.
It doesn't,
Slow.
it doesn't add water. What it does is increases the amount of water that can be drawn out of the creek. That right now what happens is, you know, the creek is flowing by the fish stream intake. And if I had a better screen, I can show you a photo of what that looks like today. So a lot of the water just passes by the intake. And so if we put that log jam at the bottom of the intake, that when you have a pool sitting there, the water automatically directing the fish into the intake.
And then when during the summer, when the creek gets really low, you can adjust the discharge out of your impound according to when the plant runs. And so when that water comes down and let the log jam be able to be drawn into the plant and not just shot on by.
Maybe we could see sometime, something like pictures, so.
We can all take a
Always
picture.
talking about it.
Yeah,
All of the
Yeah.
Or try to see it.
Is there any thought into cleaning out the impound, the dam up above?
So just before you answer, Jason, we did complete a survey of that in the last month, and we're just waiting for final numbers on that. But I'd say by our next meeting, we'll have information on how much volume is currently stored there.
Is the surrounding ground there, is that Weyerhaeuser or state ground? Down there in town? Who's your neighbors?
I believe it's federal, I'm sure.
shape of the city's property is generally the shape of it.
John, didn't you have some rough numbers as far as like what it would take to clean that income?
I haven't run any numbers on the cleaning side of it yet. But we could prepare
Yeah, you know, Kyle and I have been flirting with the idea to be open with you guys of opening up that gate valve and seeing how much we can flush out of that sediment this time of year.
Mm-hmm.
And just saying, hey, look, you know,
Let it rip through
let it
there.
rip. We know we'll recover.
Yeah.
But how would that flushing affect the downstream people that use that water?
That's the issue. And, you know, I mean, with up our chemical costs and things of that nature to treat that water, so there's, you know, pros and cons to all of it.
Plants off.
So that job would
Back in the
be,
morning.
what am I trying to say, prevailing wage job, to clean that pond out.
more than likely it would. So anytime the city dollars fund a project over $50,000, put this prevailing wage.
Because there might be, you might get Weyerhaeuser to allow you to use some of a dump spot for their, some of the material, to save a lot of money for your haul fees. They may or may not be open to that idea. Sometimes they've got spots.
It actually is where on your deal on the next property.
That's what I thought Weyerhaeuser was there somewhere. Our current engineer is pretty comfortable on things. So he might be, he gave rock to the water pump station out there. So there's sometimes not open.
Yeah, certainly if there's no pit or something there, they can take it.
And we might have something close so you're not trucking.
Then they're gonna be logging all around that soon, aren't they? Is that gonna
That
change?
ain't,
Yeah, around the town.
is it flagged off? Right now?
What's that?
Has it got flagging anywhere around it right now?
Not that.
I think I just remember, you know, people talking.
I don't even remember who said it, but.
Hmm.
Something like that changed the water quality of that even.
So a few other water projects on the table. There's a new tank reservoir to be installed at the current reservoir site on Reservoir Road. That's currently a 1.6 million gallon reservoir. And then the other one we should talk about is, I'm not sure the timing of the funding on this, but the federal dollars for the upper transmission line replacement study. Mayor Potter, do you know when that funding will be expected to be released?
The AR,
This was
The ARPA?
Berkeley's
Berkeley dollars.
oh,
192,000.
that's still gotta go, it's getting signed by president, right? It's been coming down from there, so it could be a month or more.
Okay, so I think it's important for us to understand what the time clock is on that money. It's committed to a project and we'll want to make sure. The city's getting 75% of the project cost covered by federal dollars.
On that study.
Correct.
And that's a study from the treatment plant to the reservoirs. Doing that right.
And a lot of that pipe runs through private ground, correct?
So it's a pipe, not big enough.
Oh. Oh.
1975, 72, somewhere in there.
Yeah, age PVC pipe that the city doesn't know where it is in a lot of locations.
There's a few older gentlemen that still are around that helped put that line in that might be able to help with some of the locations, but Logan's ran the backhoe on a lot of that.
Oh, wow.
So.
I know most of it within 50 yards of, but
Mhm.
if
It's
it
just
breaks
too
at
bad
night,
winds
it's
don't
gonna
break
be hard to
stuff.
find through some
Yeah.
forest areas.
There's still a few old timers around that help put that line in, so that
Mhm.
they might be able to give
Yeah.
some insight of it.
So there are easements for all that line. Everybody's got an easement that go through their property, so you could basically run the same line. I mean, put the line, the water line basically in the same spot.
I was hoping to bring it out closer to the road, just for maintenance aspects.
Mhm.
Have an overview.
And then you get to have it, your shortest route, and the cheapest route.
Yeah, I don't know that the existing easements are wide enough to support the second line. When they built the line in the 70s, they got temporary construction easements from all those property owners, so they could build this line and stay in the older transmission line that was up there. I've got the information somewhere, so, but yes, there are documented easements that hold.
That's the project overview.
No, those are the big ones out of the gate, and then we can start going through the master plan list as well.
What's the committee's thoughts for, I guess, kind of planning the agenda for our next meeting, what we want to accomplish or cover?
I think the impound water program would be really nice to hear that, where that's at. I don't know that you're gonna get all your cost numbers put together in a 2-week period of time.
Come up, yeah, the cost of water.
Yeah, that's kind of like they go more.
And we want to kind of set some goals of when to have some of that stuff, so for the 30th meeting and what impound. So probably the impounds, we could either point to have a recommendation to go to the council at the December council meeting. Whether the impound,
Put the log, all
the log jam
Mhm.
is a priority that we would recommend the council do.
We should probably make a priority over what we're gonna do this summer.
Yeah,
And
that would be,
yeah, I mean, that kind of falls down there in policies and
so as far as, it would be, I guess, AKS question. So if it became about that you could clean out the impound structure up there, what kind of a time frame to do that for permitting and stuff that you need?
I believe the Army Corps is gonna require a direct permit for that, and I think that could be 6 to 8 months. And also would have to be in water work window, which means that work has to happen between July 15th and the 21st.
Yep.
So
Fish stream program, yeah.
right, so that one, I think we're not at a point where we could complete that in
This year.
2022. And then also the funding side of that.
I think from doing it at that time period, that's when you need the water. So you're gonna be kind of like Carlton, that they're doing theirs, they had to go to McMinnville
To get water.
to get water, because they're,
Yeah.
that's you got to gamble with, do I take your impound offline at the peak of your water usage?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of. The other thing, educational wise, getting people to understand that our water, we're limited on what can be pulled from Turner Creek. We don't have an
Yeah.
unlimited amount that you can pull. And that once you reach that point, you're done. I know I've done all the water right usages and all that stuff, but we did learn there is 2 senior water right users below us. And so if they came out and said, hey, we want our water, the state can come back and restrict the city even more with those municipal water. We're only a junior water rate on Turner Creek.
Who are the senior ones?
I don't know, I've started to look through the water resource.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a couple downstream that the water resource guy told us that they located. So that is an issue. And then reading through the water master plan, again, the plant 440 to meet your chlorine contact is kind of the limiting factor there. You know, if you read through the plan, it recommended a bigger clear well and some things. Again, that all. But I think for summer, you know, the impound log jam would be a help,
Trade for rain.
and rain, and then the educational, and then the coming up with better guidelines, policies, to recommend to council for water restrictions, when to go in, when to come out. I know we've got some pretty good data from this summer. And once the flow meter gets in up there.
They've been in for about a month now. So that will help real life.
So they did install a flow meter right about the intake.
2, we've got 1 at the intake and 1 at the impact.
So that they know what Turner Creek is flowing in real time, instead of us watching rocks.
Yeah, that makes more sense. Yeah.
So I think, you know, we can maybe sit down with your guys' help, you know, put together some draft guidelines, policies for council that, you know, flow reaches X, it's automatically for level 1, and if we get X and Y or 2 and so on.
And we're looking at customizing the restrictions of what they mean.
Yeah, I would think review probably a city ordinance, so we can make recommendations adjusting maybe those levels, and seems like they going from 2 to 3 might be a little, maybe we do a more gradual. Overall, community did great. We did, when you look all
Yeah.
over a 200,000 gallon drop in almost overnight.
When we do the restrictions, we want to make sure we communicate the city and the districts are all, so that some of your council meetings, you don't get that vibe that the city folks are wanting to light this country folks on fire or cut their water line.
Well, and I think that goes back to education. We need to educate the in-town community that without the outside water users, your water rates are gonna go
Almost double.
way up. Because you still got, you know, the cost for plant operation, for chemicals, you got maintenance, upkeep. You know, you got the loans on the pipeline, the new transmission line, water plant paid for, is it still?
You cut off some of the revenue, you gotta replace it with either more cost to the user, or you start reducing your labor costs, which means you guys get the short end of it.
Well, yeah, and as an outside water user, the group that's in town that's seems to be thinking that's their easy program is just to shut off all the outside water users. Well, I've been calling some of the outside other than myself. I talked to Bailey's, talked to Yandell County Mushroom. I mean, so you're talking about cutting people off that have 120 employees and 65 employees. They do a lot of in-town business. I don't know how many of them live in town, but I mean, Bailey's has supported the community like tomorrow. And didn't Yandell County Mushroom help pay for something towards water at one point in time. I think they helped do something, and I'm not really sure what it was. And maybe it was, someone brought that up in my conversations too. So I just called a couple of them, just to kind of get an idea on how they're using their water and stuff, you know, because everybody assumes that Bailey's has their sprinklers going, that's city water. And it's 70% reclaimed water and 30% out of the Yamhill River. But they do use water in their buildings and for their employees. So, yeah, Yamhill County mushrooms said they hauled a bunch of water, cut their water usage down as much as they could. But, you know, but you're talking about limiting people that are supporting the community in other ways, not just paying their water bill when you start talking about making the outside world people mad. I mean, in all reality, we need the water is just the same as anybody living in town. I mean, we would have a separate, personally, we have a separate water source. We have a stupid sulfur water, well, we could turn on it, but in our house, but it stinks really bad. And so we have another source, but most people that live on these water lines do not have the second source of water. And I don't think that the city approached all the rural people to ask them to do a water line. I think the people that lived in the rural city of Yamhill approached the city about putting in these outside water lines. Because once one started, I imagine everybody said, hey, there's a way to get water. So,
And that might be
and that's part of the education, I think.
education. The other thing is, you know, we've got 9 or 10 water districts.
Mhm.
What would there be benefit instead of 9 or 10, there was one water district?
Well, they tried that once before. The problem is that every water district has a different number on their line. I mean, they have a different cost or a different, their line's more depreciated out than the other one. And so they've tried it. They had the office across the street in a little house. And they tried going through everybody in the one system. And it just was a fiasco. It didn't work. But it was pretty complicated. And then, but in my opinion, the long range plan would be to make all these water districts part of the city of Yamhill district and make it one huge water district and get rid of some of the stuff. But again, whoever takes it on is taking on what's there. I mean, half our line's new.
Looking at, you know, there might be some better funding options
Mhm.
down the road.
Yeah, so it's just there's a lot, you know, with the outside water people that we deal with, the same as some of you guys, what you deal with. We don't treat the water, but we still gotta test everything. Gotta go through that process. We have insurance.
I don't know what else it wasn't covered tonight, but this, I think for the 30th is at the log jam, and try to finalize that
Mhm.
piece and, you know, come together and put together a good recommendation for council. Maybe look at, you know, cost, where funding might come from.
So that was one that Arthur said that there was that special public works fund that he thought there was a good candidate for and it gets funded pretty readily. So that's a low interest loan for that one.
Again, we're gonna need to know what our cost for water is. We know if we're gonna be able to afford to pay that loan back, or what we would have to do to increase.
So are you guys planning another increase in the year? You did 17% this summer, is there another?
17% next year.
Is it next year again?
But I think if we go out alone, we have to figure out how we're gonna pay that back, right? So I think, again, that's where we need to know the cost of water.
And then the other thing that keeps coming up is how much the line cost put in out there and how is it funded? That'd be nice to know. So, I don't know that.
It was roughly $2.5 million.
call in on it. And it was funded through Business Oregon, through the state drinking water revolving fund.
So there's a loan.
So that's what part of your water, the increase in water,
That's what.
Yeah, it's paying loan.
is paying the loan.
Yeah, makes sense.
So like I said, any loan we take out, we gotta be able to pay for it. And
Sure.
so
What kind of a time frame on the loan? How many years do you pay that off? I'm not familiar with public lending at all.
I think it was 20 years.
I
Yeah.
can't wait 20 years to do the other.
yeah, no, there,
But there are a couple, I think that the loan for the treatment plant matures in years. Yeah.
I can check on that and send that out to the Water Advisory Committee if you'd like me to on the loans.
yeah, that'd be great, Sharon, so we know
Okay.
where we're at.
Okay, and
loan-wise.
did you want me to also update you on the upper transmission main replacement study?
Yes,
Fritz Graham contacted me. This was a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago. He stated that he was hoping that the Senate and the president would address this in their meeting in December. He said sometimes they recess and address it after they've recessed, but I'll check back in with him and see if that's still on schedule. The letter of interest went in for the 1.6 million gallon reservoir. And I will check back with the state emergency managers to see when that letter of interest will be reviewed and when they will get back to us on that. And then there's a county grant that's due December 8th, and I'm just waiting from some information from engineering to see if we want to apply for a capital expense for just the tank, or if we want to, you know, how we want to piece that out, because there's a 50% match for the total cost of the project, or 100% match of what the amount is granted. So we kind of need to piece that out, because we're with the SDC funding that we have for the 25% for the main replacement study, and then we'd also need another 25% for the federal one for the 1.6 million gallon, cannot talk right now, the reservoir tank. We need to just make sure that we're able to have that match amount. So I'm send an email to John, and then we can continue to work on that one and get that grant application in December.
with that, on the 1.6 million gallon. Were we able to use any SDC funds on that? Or?
I'm not sure exactly how that's going to, I believe so. I think it was like 645,000. But I've requested technical assistance because they explained we couldn't just apply to add a new tank. We had to upgrade the existing tanks. And as John explained, we were in a meeting with them, that you can't upgrade those tanks, you can't increase their capacity, you can't, but they said that we have to apply to upgrade the tanks, and then have that technical assistance go through to evaluate it. And part of that upgrade might be demolishing the existing tanks and then reconstructing or adding a new tank. So we have to go with however their process works so that we can get approved for funding, because I don't know if I've stated this before, and I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, but they said you have a slim to nil chance of getting a new build. So like a new tank, they wouldn't fund.
That was the BRIC grant, Sharon?
The BRIC grant, we weren't accepted because it was applied for as a new build. And like I explained, the new build has very little chance of getting awarded. But in speaking with them further and explaining how there was an executive order from the governor and all these different things and working with them, we got a letter of interest for another one of those federal grants in, and I'm working with that emergency manager. And we'll be working on that. We've been working on it for a while now. But we rephrased it to upgrade the existing tanks so that they're seismically safe and to have an increased capacity. And they both said that, they have to determine if they can't upgrade the existing tanks and if they need to demolish and redo it. So I've applied for technical assistance so that they'll review all the specifications. And if they come to that decision, then they will go ahead and approve it. But we can't just apply for the new tank, which is what had happened for the brick letter of interest.
So the second reservoir is, well, the new reservoir is 40% SDC creditable from the RTP.
Yes, it's 40% SDC eligible, and we've got a 25% match, and the quote on that was 3.5 million. So we're going to have to, that's why I've asked for technical assistance, because we're probably going to have to kind of piece that project out or see if we can't, actually you can't apply more federal funding to that match. So it would have to come solely from either state or city funding. You can't use any more federal funds for that match. So it's going to take a little work. That's why I've applied for that technical assistance, and I'm working very closely with them. But these really large projects, hopefully we can somehow get a few grants or some other funding going. And we have to kind of pick and choose because the federal funding sometimes doesn't work with the other grants. So I'll be working closely with Carrie Martin once we get rolling on that application for the county. And then I will check back in with the state emergency managers.
Well, would we be better off using, if we could get the county ARPA fund grant, would we be better off using those dollars to take care of the log jam and doing the technical work for a tie line with the map over Hillsborough? If we could use those dollars for that.
The log jam, and correct me if I'm wrong, John, it's not on our CIP list. So I'd have to check and see if we could apply for funding through the county, if it had to be officially, gosh, what is the phrase, John? Officially accepted document. So some of the projects for certain grants have to be officially documented in like a water master plan or a capital improvement project list. So I'd have to check. And from what I understand, the logjam project is not on the capital improvement list. Is that right, John?
We have a project we can potentially cover under. Let me look into that.
Do you have something? Okay, because I thought when we were looking at that earlier that it wasn't. But that's great if you can, if we can make it on there.
My opinion is if the county funding is available and can fund the 1.6 million gallon reservoir, I think that's the best option.
It wouldn't be able to fund it because then I'll have to check my facts, but I think the maximum grant is $100,000. So it wouldn't, if we're looking at like 2.5, it wouldn't fund it, but it could be a piece. That's why I was trying to kind of piece that out. Maybe, I don't know how much the tank is, or, what phases of that project could be pieced out that could be paid for with that money. But if you want to set up a meeting, we can talk about that and see if that project can be pieced out.
Maybe we can talk about that in our next
water advisory board meeting.
Yeah.
I can't make the meeting at 3 o'clock. I can't do 3 o'clock. I could do a 3 o'clock on a Wednesday if you wanted to switch it to Wednesday. But I could provide a staff report to be presented at the meeting if you want it to be at 3 o'clock.
Want to just provide a staff report. What we'll do is we'll Zoom it and record it. That way you'll have for minutes
Okay,
for later.
okay.
We can set up and Zoom it and record it. Yeah, Marcy, take notes.
Secretary.
So,
I'll go ahead and follow up with an email of what I've stated and check on some of those things to get you some firmer information, but I will send out an email to everyone just to confirm everything.
I think for our November 30th, we could work on the log jam and try and come up with some type of funding and recommendations for the council for their December meeting, so they can be authorized to start moving that forward for short term for this next summer. And then maybe have time we can start reading through the water level, the ordinances and what, that way we can start modifying them, making recommendations so that the council would have time to approve them or reject them so that we can get those in place before summer.
Yeah.
That way we can work on an educational piece in the spring, going out to everyone. That way when we hit those, they're already aware of what the trigger points are that's going to trigger those things. And part of that will be input from Jason and Kyle, on flows and what we've seen this year.
And then also with the ordinance stuff, the city is going to put in place, if the district's got it before the day that you're gonna do the ordinance, we might be able to take our districts and come up with an ordinance for our districts to fall in line with what the city's doing, as far as outside watering, that kind of stuff.
So that sounding good for our next
Yep,
meeting. We'll work
sounds
on
great.
the log jam, getting a recommendation and funding of some sort, and then start looking at the ordinance. And if, we get everybody a copy of the ordinance and the master plan and all that. You have problems sleeping at night and finding reading material.
If you're wanting to apply for the county grant, the deadline is December 8th. And so we would need to have those details sooner than November 30th. You're gonna need some time to pull stuff together.
Sharon, I think we have some questions about the dollar value on that county grant.
Okay,
I think, isn't it $1 million?
I don't believe so, but like I said, I'll go and check all the facts and send out an email.
I thought the county was $1 million. They were gonna do $1 million. The one time it was $1.5 million, but I think they might have dropped that down to $1 million.
Okay, I'll, like I said, I'll go through and check all the facts and send out an email. But we're gonna need to have that information pretty quickly to get that grant application processed and in there.
What do you need to get that done, John?
Sharon's writing the grant, right?
But yeah, as far
Yes.
as what she would need,
I-
you already have a dollar amount of you for.
Yep, we've got the project description, the project need, and the dollar value.
And she already has that, right?
No, for the log jam,
No, for the
No,
tank.
for the tank.
we need to, like I said, we need to piece that out.
Problem with the tank. though,
Because
is
we've got
it's
2.5 million and we wouldn't be able to meet the 50% match of the 2.5 million. So that's why I was asking for to see if the project could be pieced out.
The problem with the tank is it's $3.5 million to use the tank, right?
No, I think that.
It was 2.5 for a new tank. It was 3.5 that we applied for through federal because we had to do an upgrade, which is what their grant process required. So with the county requiring a 50% match or 100% match, so it, half, or, say it's $1 million, and I'll have to go back and do some fact checking. But, we'd have to either provide $1 million or half, what is half of 2.5, 1.25 million for match. So that's why I was requesting from engineering to work with them on maybe phasing or piecing out the project to reduce the overall price that we were applying for. Because we do not have the SDC funds to meet that match amount.
Yeah, if that's the matching requirement and we just simply don't have the funds to do it, then yeah.
I think that's what's gonna kill us on the tank at the moment. So do we concentrate what funding we can get on at least the short term fix that we could have done by summer?
Didn't Arthur from Business Oregon say that he could potentially provide something as for?
It was
for
gonna be
part-
He could provide a loan through the Special Works Fund. But there was something about the timing because of the permits, because I believe most of the projects had to be off the ground ready. Do you remember, John, what he was asking you about the permitting process, and could we have that done and all those things? But I do believe it was another loan.
It's correct. It was another loan. The timing was just a matter of whether or not we could get through the permitting before the in-water work period this summer. I think that was independent of whether or not they would fund the project.
Okay, good. Do you want me to go back to him and check? Are we interested in checking into loans? From what Arthur has told me, that the loans would require potentially raising the water rates even further.
And that's where we're at. We don't know what our current true costs are now. And so we can't really come up with the loan stuff. I'm just looking at
Arthur-
projects that we can do now, but what funding we could acquire to at least get a Band-Aid fix on, so that we're not quite in crisis we were at the summer.
Do you want me to work on the logjam project?
I think
For
the
the
logjam
county
is our
funding?
Quickest and cheapest.
Cheapest fix.
Okay, so would you like me to work on that? And I think Jody, you have your hand raised. Is that right? Did you want to say
Yeah,
something?
I just wanted to, if I could, I think what Arthur can do is once you have the project determined, then you would have a one-stop with Business Oregon. And through
Yes.
that process, they would then identify a rate study. So then they would look at your current rates and then they would assess what may have to be adjusted in order to provide the loan depending on what agency. So you may have USDA or you may have Business Oregon, depending on what the program is. So going through Business Oregon through that process would have a rate study, which I don't know which member of your committee mentioned that, but that would be part of that.
Yeah, that was, I believe, Chief Jensen, but yes, he did state that it would do a rate study. And from what he's told us, that we would most likely need to raise the water rates, but I can confirm that with him. But that was something in our previous meetings that they were saying they didn't want to raise the water rates anymore, but I can double check with him.
I just have a feeling raising rates, pay more loans at the moment is not going to be a very popular event, so.
You want to sell a rate, you better know what you're paying for your water to start with.
Yeah, I think we got that piece. We need to, but if there's a way to do something quickly to improve, really, we need to have something in place for next summer.
Can I just ask this and, stop me if I'm completely off base here. Could we offset the rate increase of water with decreasing the rate in wastewater?
We have a loan on the wastewater, so I don't believe we could decrease the wastewater rates.
Yeah,
I
well,
think it's the same thing with the water, that those rates are set as they are because of the loans we have. But I can definitely go through and check. And I'm sorry I don't have immediate answer because I don't normally do finances, but I can check.
So we flag trap some of those beavers and give Kyle some beaver challenge, start training them.
Sharon, that'd be great if you could get us some loan numbers so we know what we're working with.
Yeah, I'll do my best. You mentioned that there might be some financial help through COG. Is that still potentially available? Because we might need to tap into that to get through with that and figure it out.
No, not that I'm aware of specifically,
Okay,
not in relation to water anyway.
okay. So I'll check into that, and if we're having some difficulty deciphering the information, because this was all processed through our previous city recorder, it's not, secondhand for either me or Kim. I'll reach out to LOC or COG and see if someone can assist us there.
Good idea.
And we'll get that information. Do you want it just for the next meeting, or do you want it emailed as soon as we have it?
if you could email it out as soon as you get it, that way we got time to review it, so.
Sure thing.
So there seems to be a lot of grant sources out there that are kind of, well, I'm completely unaware of, but, and then there's a timeline on the one that you just mentioned. Should we actually get a list of potential grant sources and availability and timelines for submission? So we know that if we're gonna go after one, we have to actually approach it far enough in advance to be able to get it put together properly.
The idea and concept are good, but in reality, we don't honestly know what's coming out and when it's coming out because.
That's the one-stop meeting with Jody.
Yeah.
And what it,
Well, the one-stop meeting identifies funding sources through the state. It doesn't take into consideration all the grants that might be out there. That's a research process, and I've gone through and I've done some refinding. I haven't had a lot of time to continue because we're shorthanded in the administrative department. But we're supposed to be getting some help soon, so I can start checking into those resources. But like USDA is only able to offer loans. So some of those sources that are out there, you kind of have to check into the finer details. But if anybody is aware of something, I can check into it more. And I should be able to do some more further research as we get an interim person coming on soon. I can give you all the dates and timeframes and all the details that I have on the current things that we're looking at applying for.
A lot of the grants I've dealt with, you need to have your game plan put together, and then when you kind of watch and then they pop up. EQ just did a vehicle deal. I didn't find out about it till the week, but I did manage to get one in. But again, it's having your game plan, having your engineering stuff put together, a lot of infrastructure, the seismic stuff that we did at the station required a lot of engineering stuff that we had to have prior to applying.
Yes, I have been working very closely with John to get details for the grants and letting him know when the grants are due and different things. So me and John have been working on those things.
But I think that this committee will be a part of our goal is to identify, prioritize, and present to the council, and then they can
Sure.
tell us yea or nay, or whatever their desire is, but at least look at those options and have as much detail. So that way, when funding does pop up.
So you're talking about projects that you're getting detail for so that we can apply for funding?
That's what he's saying.
Yeah,
Okay, now I'm understanding.
but I'm just thinking for the current thing, we need to, it sounds like we don't have funding or even the potential to do the reservoir tank.
We've applied for federal funding. We'll see what they can do for that. As far as applying for the county funding, I will, like I said, I'm waiting to get some more information from John. We may be able to make that work.
I think the log jam is gonna be, and I don't know what everybody else thinks, but
I think that's the only simple solution I can see for summer, this summer. I mean, everything else is planning and permits and,
we're 2 or 3 years out.
yeah.
Well, I just wonder if there's other capital improvements that don't address the water needs, but they're still on the capital improvement plan in town, that you could capitalize on this funding opportunity with the county dollars to fund those projects.
Yeah, we can talk about that, but we'd have to, like I said, the match amount is pretty high. So if they're wanting us to conserve the SDC dollars for something else,
Master plan identifies the park.
Exactly,
So could you combine that with the log jam? Or with the log jam and maybe, you know, your technical engineering for a tie line work. Because there's gonna be some cost. You know, whether you go to Master, you're doing your survey and analysis for the tie line. I'm just looking for.
well, I wonder if we can't use that federal money for Merkley money to look at that, right? I mean, the whole point of that is to study that upper transmission line,
Mhm.
and that upper transmission line could involve running a pipeline to a different agency. So we have to look at, can we, there's a good chunk of money there, can we capitalize on that? That in a different way.
Because I think, you know, the public not go out for more cost increase. And we start talking loans,
Yeah, and the loans, you gotta pay
you
them
gotta
back.
pay it back, so what can we do with money that we have now that is grants or not loans? To get us through this next summer, maybe into the next summer, so. We'll work on that for next meeting, the log jam, kind of try and fine tune that and come back with a recommendation for the council. And then we'll look at the trigger points for water levels and what we're gonna do. Maybe I'll be able to, we can get those out and everybody can look at them, maybe we can fine tune them at the next meeting and have a recommendation for council. Then you guys have to do ordinance readings, and so it'll take them a couple of months to get those up and running. But that way they could do that before summer, that way by spring, they could be in place and could start the educational piece.
Sure.
First part of spring and it'll run smoothly.
There'll be a middle, there on top.
So that makes sense for for the 30th.
Mhm.
Anything else that we want to cover before?
That clock's wrong.
Yeah,
It is wrong.
I'm 10 minutes.
I've been looking at that. What?
I got 10 minutes to be through.
Okay.
No, I think we're good.
Just for protocol's sake, we're not supposed to be discussing anything over email, right? All our discussions have to happen at this forum.
I can take that one if you'd like, Mayor.
Thank you, Nicholas.
Yeah, so because you are a public body, you are held by what Oregon calls its public meeting laws and public transparency laws. So if you have anything that you discuss that would eventually lead to a recommendation or some sort of a final action or an action by the committee, that is something that is subject to public meeting laws. So in this case, if you were to, for example, share an email with everyone in the group discussing what you would want to do with regards to the logjam, that would be something that you would normally discuss in public hearings, and therefore under Oregon law, it would require public notice beforehand, 24 hours notice at least to the public. So to basically the advice that attorneys give in all these cases is don't discuss committee business outside the committee, and don't email back and forth about anything that has anything to do with committee business, even if it ends up being in somewhat of an impersonal or a less than professional setting. So like Facebook, for example, if people back and forth discuss a topic that eventually leads to a final decision, it's theoretically a violation of Oregon open meeting law.
Nick, John can send stuff out to the committee because he's not a voting member, correct? He's given us technical information.
So information can be sent to the committee, Sharon, or I guess most staff members could send things to the committee. The severing step is when it would be used in a discussion to kind of push forward a decision of some sort. So my advice would be that have a distinct person that you have designated as kind of an information sender. In this case, Sharon would be a good option. She can be the one that distributes information to people. And otherwise kind of cease conversation betwixt yourselves with regards to anything that is committee business.
So providing them with the loan information via email is okay.
Yes.
Providing them with a staff report, is that okay?
Yes.
Okay.
That would be all right. The point where it becomes a public meeting is when members of the committee discuss amongst themselves their ideas or what they understand from those reports. And it gets a little gray zony if a member of the committee sends a report to another member of the committee because it's in theory subjectively influencing or implying some sort of an outcome. But in general, sending factual information to all members of the committee is fine as long as there's no discussion about that factual information, unless it's publicly noticed.
Do you want to clarify how members of the committee cannot meet if they're forming a quorum outside of a public meeting? I'm not sure how many people know that, because I know just with the planning commission, they've asked me that, but you might want to just relay that too.
So a public meeting officially begins in Oregon when you have a quorum of members who could make a decision or a recommendation. In this case, because we have 8 voting members of this committee, I believe when we add the city plant operator, it'll be 9. That means 5 members of this committee in any single meeting has reached a quorum where they, in theory, could come to a conclusion and say, we would like to recommend to the city council XYZ, such and such. And that would be a valid decision of the commission because a majority of the members voted or decided to recommend. So if there are, for example, only 2 people in a meeting, it's not a public meeting because no quorum was met and nothing can actually come of that meeting. But what Oregon has is a thing called serial meetings, where if 2 of you meet and then later on you meet with another 2 people and then another 2 people and then another 2 people until eventually you've met with 7 or 8 of the people on the committee and you discuss the topic together. The Oregon sort of says, we understand what you're doing here. We're implying that a quorum was met by your individual conversations. So less than 5 people in a room at any given time, unless it's publicly noticed, is kind of the best case scenario.
Well, we only have 7 people on the committee, so it'd be 4 people.
7 people. 2, 2, 2. Are we adding the city plant manager as a voting member or a non-voting member?
The city plant manager will be a voting member.
Yes.
There's 7.
There's 7.
Oh, okay, so in this case, the city plant manager is going to be the city staff rather than Sharon?
That's
Yes.
correct.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, in that case, 4 people, no more than 4 people in a room at any given time.
Yeah, and sorry about the whole thing with the resolution. I thought it stated in the resolution that it was a member of the administration department. It's just a city staff member. So Kyle can take that slot, right?
Yes, it should be.
Yeah. Okay.
And for the record, in the next city council meeting, and I'll talk this over with Sharon over the next couple days, we will want to do a resolution with the city council that basically amends the water advisory committee's requirements so that we can add education and grant writing, as well as potentially put in the actual names of people on that resolution. So we don't just have an asterisk city staff and outside people and inside people. We can amend that to have all information that's necessary as now.
Sounds good.
Excellent. Thank you, Nicholas.
Anything else? Motion to adjourn.
Nope,
Oh,
we have to open for public comment. We've got to give the community opportunity
I
to
didn't see that.
talk. So
Oh, yeah.
at this time, we will open the meeting up for public comment. If you are online and you wish to comment, please raise your hand and Sharon will identify you.
There are no hands raised.
At this time, public comment will be closed.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
And
Favor say aye.
Aye. We are adjourned.